Welcome to the third edition of the Homeschool Basketball Rankings videos, where we go over the 2014-15 homeschool basketball season and come out with the final rankings. Today we're going to be going over national number 4. Previously, we've gone over the undisputed national champion Oklahoma City Storm ending the season at number 1, CHSM Crimson Knights out of Houston being number 2, and just recently Wisconsin's Lakeshore Thunder ending the season at number 3. Currently have a few teams that have received consideration in this 4th spot, and they are the Kansas City Metro Mavericks out of Kansas, Tennessee's Nashville Central Christian Warriors, NCC Warriors, and the Indianapolis Wildcats. And these 3 teams had an impressive season. They all won gold balls, but they not just won gold balls, they achieved a lot during the year. Nashville NCC won the Midwest Championship. Indianapolis Wildcats made the National Final Four, and Kansas City Metro Mavericks took home their gold ball, and then they knocked off NCC in a gold ball showdown series game. So great body of work for all 3 teams, but in the end I had to go with one team to take that 4th and final spot. And for you that follow homeschool basketball all year long, and especially at nationals, no surprise here, had to go with the Indianapolis Wildcats. What a year they had. Indianapolis opened the season preseason number 8, and just a little bit of background on that. That's not high for Indianapolis Wildcats and their fans, but considering the year that the Wildcats were coming off of, it was quite a high pick for a team that really struggled all year just to be average. And the Indianapolis Wildcats, they fought all year. They're a typical Jeremy Bialik team in the sense that they played hard and maximized their talent. Just the 2013 and 14 season, they just didn't have a tremendous amount of talent compared to the competition. So they come over the summer, big announcement on 2 key additions, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, but 2 key additions that have been homeschooled much of their life, but just have been playing for a Christian school that their father coached. And so these 2 additions brought a lot of buzz in the Indianapolis area, and it was enough to get Indy Wildcats up to number 8 in the preseason. What we saw during the years, the Wildcats just steadily rose in the rankings. While other teams would struggle, the Wildcats seemed to be in auto drive. They just took care of every homeschool opponent they played until the regional championships. And really, they started out at preseason number 8. They moved up to number 6 in November, number 5 in December, number 4 in January, and by February they were number 3, poised to be number 2. I believe if they had won the Midwest Championship, they would have been number 2, with Tulsa Noah having slipped and losing to the Oklahoma City Storm North in a regular season game. Instead, they struggled at the Midwest Championships. They fell to a tough Kalamazoo squad in the semifinals, but they were able to use that as motivation. And the way that they came back in that game against Kalamazoo was something that we got to see the Wildcats do at the national tournament. Now, Coach Bialik told me when I talked to him on the phone, I talked to all 3 coaches of the teams that received consideration, but when I talked to Coach Bialik about this year's Wildcats team, he said that all year, he can't count how many times they fought back from games that they were trailing, and it was something that the way he phrased it was, they just win. They believe. And sometimes they believe even when I didn't. And I think that says a lot about a coach who has had his share of success. In fact, Coach Jeremy Bialik is the first coach to ever take an Indiana homeschool basketball team to back-to-back trips. And actually went back-to-back-to-back trips to the National Elite 8. And he also, in those 3 trips, he was unable to get to the National Final Four. However, this year, with their win and getting to the National Final Four, he was able to become just the 2nd ever Indiana homeschool basketball coach to make a trip to the National Final Four, joining good friend and rival Brian Gannon of the Eastside Golden Eagles. And Indiana homeschool basketball entering the season had never won a gold ball. Well, that changed when Coach Will Tolbert, good friend and rival of the Indy Wildcats, and Jeremy Bialik won with his Northwest Indy Warriors literally right before the Indy Wildcats were able to take home their Class 3A gold ball. Coach Tolbert's Warriors took home the Class A gold ball and moved on to the Gold Ball Showdown Series quarterfinals, where we'll talk about how they did later. But the Indy Wildcats won their Class 3A gold ball and then moved on to the Gold Ball Showdown Series quarterfinals, where they took on the Kansas City Metro Mavericks. And it was a gutsy game. It was about 4 to 5 point game most of the time. And Indy Wildcats were able to gut out a really big win. But before we get too far down the road, and that was the win that put them into the National Final Four, I have to talk about the game against the Aggieland Panthers. It was probably the greatest comeback in gold ball history. I mean, the Indy Wildcats were down by as many as 17 points in the second half, and they erased that deficit in record time. I think in about 4-minute stretch, they had found a way to just completely erase the lead. The momentum was so great that there was nothing that Aggieland could do, and the Wildcat fans just were outstanding. They showed up in force, and they cheered their team on, and when the momentum was going against the team that really had just dominated Indy Wildcats in the first half. I mean, Aggieland had, Jeremiah Allen had multiple posterizations. In fact, one of his posterizations, he got a technical for taunting. It was just, I mean, I called the game, and when I saw it happen, it was, the dunks were just monstrous. And he's only a sophomore, and we'll be talking about Aggieland plenty later on. But it just really didn't seem like Indy had any answer. And in that second half, and about 4 minutes left in the third quarter, Jeremiah Allen with some foul trouble went to the bench, and then the Indy Wildcats built on the momentum, and then they ended up fouling out big-time player Cam, and he was newcomer of the year. And when he fouled out in the third quarter, it was just a total game changer. And his coach actually tried to pull him out, and he waved him off. And I'm sure that we'll talk about that later on when we talk about Aggieland. But the Indy Wildcats pick up the win. And I talked to Coach Bialik about that game, and what he said is that Spencer Schreiner just absolutely was huge in that game. And you know, there were a couple seniors on this Indy Wildcat team, Spencer Schreiner, that started during the year, or major contributors. Spencer Schreiner and Tommy Magnum were two of those players, and then Noah Black, who also graduated. But Schreiner was huge in the game against Aggieland, and it was a game where Josiah, I'm getting ahead of myself just a little bit here, but I haven't even mentioned the Ochin twins. I talked about the big transfers, and here I am. We're getting along in this video. I'm starting to run out of time, and I haven't even brought up the Ochin twins. And for you that are in the Midwest, this is the longest you've heard anyone talk about the Wildcats where the Ochin twins weren't mentioned, and it was probably a nice break. But for you Indy Wildcat fans, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Josiah and Noah Ochin. The MCHC Player of the Year is Josiah Ochin, and he was, talking to Coach Bialik, he was unconscious in the state tournament, scored 36 points for the Wildcats in a game that his brother Noah fouled out, and really they needed him to step up in a big way against rival Northwest Indy and stopping the Warriors from winning their first ever state championship, claiming their second ever state championship for the Indy Wildcats, and a major step for their program. But the Ochin twins, Noah and Josiah Ochin, they were really just the class of as far as guards go, the class of the tournament this past national championships. And I was just blown away with not just the way they played, but the way they carried themselves. They were fierce competitors, but always kept their composure. Josiah came in first-team All-American. Noah was a second-team All-American. But the thing about it is, Josiah struggled a little bit. Coach Bialik shared there were some injuries that had just been wearing on them all year, and he just said by the Nationals, Josiah was worn out. What blew me away in the game against Aggieland was that while Josiah, their leading scorer all season long, wasn't on fire the way that he was in the state tournament, scoring 36 points, he never forced the issue. Always made the right decision. And he got Noah, his brother, involved. And Noah was an absolute stud during the week. And that Aggieland game, he was huge. But Spencer Schreiner was another player that really just stood out. And Coach Bialik really talked about how two of his seniors, Tommy Magnan and Schreiner, it was like something kicked in as seniors. They knew that this was it for them. And as the tournament went on, they just started playing bigger and bigger. And, you know, that's something that's always a key ingredient to teams having success. One of the things about this Indianapolis Wildcat team is, as Coach Bialik said, they just win, they believe. But one of the key ingredients with this squad is they return quite a few players. Noah and Josiah Ochin are back. Hyatt Dunlap, Carter Hughes, and Aaron Gilmer all return. Those were all key players this last year. Those 5 have a really good chance at starting. Some of them are shoo-ins, I'm sure. And there could be a couple players, some younger players, that maybe come in and try to fill the loss of some of these seniors that graduated. And I know there's some 3 or 4 good, young, talented post players that are fighting for playing time to be a major contributor on a team that really has the potential to open up the season in the top 5 spot after finishing where they did this last year. And with what they have returning back, you're always looking for star power when doing preseason rankings, and that's something the Indianapolis Wildcats have. So the 2015-2016 season isn't too far away, and I know that the summer league's been going on, and Coach Bialik's very excited with what they're seeing. They had their chance to play their first ever Class 4A school, whether it be scrimmage, whether it be summer league or regular season, and I think he said they were up 53-16 in the fourth quarter of that game. So this is a team that you're going to have to watch out for. Coach Bialik has always maximized his talent, and they've always done well. The Indiana homeschool basketball is always a hotbed for teams competing and pushing each other. The Midwest region's always difficult. In fact, Lakeshore Thunder was in the Midwest region. Indy Wildcats are in the Midwest region. Another team we'll be talking about soon is the NCC Warriors. And then down the road, not too far down the road, we're going to have to talk about the Northwest Indy Warriors, who also won a gold ball. And the Butternut is another team that won a gold ball out of the Midwest region. So just an absolutely difficult region to play in, and it just gets these teams ready for nationals. And so I'm really excited about covering the 2015-16 Indianapolis Wildcats, who finished the season, 2014 and 15 season, as your 4th-ranked homeschool basketball team. We will be covering number 5 here soon. Hope you are able to watch, and thank you.